The star on my clothing may fade, but the star in our hearts never do, even after a 44-19 home loss opener to the New Orleans Saints. Hi, I'm Michael Davis with my dad, Mac, and this is Dad and the Boys. This is not the vibe we had last week, but we are going to cover it. People tried bringing it up on Out of Pocket yesterday when I was over on Boom Broadcasting, and it was tough, but it's totally okay because we're going to cover it all today. What better way for a son and father to bond over than their mutual love for the Dallas Cowboys? Hi, I'm Michael Davis with my dad, Mac. We're a star-studded son and dad duo on the star-studded Cowboys Network, powered by Fans First Sports Network and Boom Broadcasting. And this is Dad and the Boys. I don't even know where to start with this game other than you're defending the star really well right now, but we couldn't defend the run. One of the things I noticed with this game was Alvin Kamara. He's always given Dallas fits. 20 carries, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 2 catches, 60-some yards receiving. I think it was 65 and a touchdown. Which I'm not surprised about Kamara having a good game. I'm surprised about the lack of snaps DeMarvion Overshown had after a really great Week 1 performance.
Well, it isn't necessarily about DeMarvion Overshown. Zimmer, I love you, brother. I mean, I love you as a coach. I've always loved you as a coach. You're a great coach. I have and defensive mind beyond all. But this is one time you actually should have paid attention to Dan Quinn. A few years back, we played the Saints, and Alvin Kamara was in that game. We had an answer for him. It was Jordan Lewis. He should have been a spy. Now, folks, Derek Carr had one of the best games I've ever seen the man play. We jumped on a team that is probably one of the hottest teams in the league right now. And unfortunately, we just couldn't answer. It happens. It happens to every team in the NFL. You have those days where no matter what you do, stuff doesn't go right. And once you get down 21,
21-6,
6, 21-10, whatever the score was, I can't remember top of my head, right off the bat. But it was like, boom, and it was like, what in the world are we going to do?
It was tough. And there was a point where it was 21-13, but it always felt from the get-go that we were playing from behind because we started trading touchdowns for field goals.
And there again, I mean, sometimes you just have those moments. It reminds me kind of almost of that game where Brett Favre played for the Packers the night that his dad passed away. I don't think Derek's dad passed away during this game or before the game, but there again, sometimes you have those moments. You have those games where people just are they're on a different level. And, fortunately for the Saints, they were that day. We cannot stop them. I don't think it was from lack of effort, by no means. I think this is one of those things where, you don't burn the tape. And Mike McCarthy's already said that he's not going to burn the tape. But they're going to go in. Yesterday they looked at the tape. They viewed it. Now they're going to need to figure out how they're going to proceed going forward to make sure that this is just an aberration, that it doesn't happen again. Because we're going to be facing other teams that have seen this tape. Not every team is going to be the New Orleans Saints or not going to have their personnel. Those guys were on. I mean, that one kid, that Shaheed or whatever. Shaheed, the dude had blazing speed. I don't know why we had 2 safeties trying to cover him. And there was times where I sat there and I was like, I love Overshown when he was on the field, but he shouldn't be recovering. He shouldn't be covering Chris Olave. it just is what it is. I mean, every team in their history has had a butt whipping. This was a butt whipping. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you know what? It's one loss. We're 1-1.
And to be fair, there's other teams around the league. I mean, this isn't a 49ers podcast. This isn't, other teams podcast, but there's other teams in the NFL
in the
who
NFC,
are 1-1.
In the NFC, I mean, look at it.
49ers.
You got the 49ers there, 1-1. You've got Detroit, 1-1. You've got Dallas, 1-1.
Those are your three NFC
You got
powerhouses.
Green Bay, 1-1.
I mean, you even look at the AFC. You got the Ravens, who we'll talk about more Friday. They're 0-2.
And who won the other one? Tampa Bay. Well, Tampa Bay's 2-0. I don't even know who they played the last two games.
It's Tampa. They did beat Detroit this past week. So that's a quality win.
That's a very quality win. And I don't know who they played the first game. But looking at if the Saints continue like they are, the Saints are probably going to be a top contender for that division. Whether the Bucs can continue on, I don't know. You've got Baker Mayfield. Baker may have a great year. He may have a so-so year. So, I mean, I don't feel that the panic button needs to be hit. I think this is one of those things where you just go, what in the heck happened? And you sit there and you take and reevaluate what did we do right? What did we do wrong? How do we correct what we did wrong, and how do we expand on what we did right? I mean, because there was glimpses of things that happened that were good in that game. I mean, C.D. Lamb had 90 yards. Zeke receiving did well. Schoonmaker had 43 yards on 6 catches. I mean,
Jalen Tolbert had a
great game. Some of the catches he was making was amazing. That one going down the sidelines that he caught, I was like, holy crap. And he was being interfered with the whole time. And he still caught the ball. I mean, we had some plays where I know that we want to sit there and go, if we could have that back. We made the wrong decision, bringing it out of the end zone, getting to the 10-yard line. I don't know why Wanye, and I love Wanye Thomas.
Me too.
But I don't know why he's returning kicks. It needs to be
Kavontae
Turpin or Deuce Vaughn or Rico Dowdle.
It needs to be Kavontae. He just returned a kick last week.
Yeah, for a touchdown. I mean, now he's not going to do that every week, but
he gives you your best
better
chance.
shot out there. And I love Wanye, but Wanye's not that guy for returns. And he struggled with it, in all honesty. I mean, I think he had one decent return at best. But he needs to be, if anything, he needs to be for depth on the defense. The rushing never really got underway, and a lot of that is simply put, we kept chasing points. It seemed like we was in an uphill battle the entire game, which, last year Dallas trailed at home for 40-some minutes, and we trailed the entire game from the time they scored the first touchdown, which was pretty early in the game, through the whole game, and that didn't cease. We've got to regroup because we have the Ravens coming up.
And that's going to be tough. If you've listened to Out of Pocket, you know how afraid I am of the Ravens. Don't let the records fool you. And this is what I'll say. I've said in the past, preseason records don't matter. They really don't. And regular season records matter, but it is September football. If you look at a team and you're like, oh, they're 2-0, they must be better than this 0-2 team, or vice versa, I'm going to be like, no, not really. I would take a 0-2 Baltimore team over a 2-0 Tampa team. Now, I hope this doesn't age poorly, except for this upcoming week when the Cowboys play the Ravens and hopefully make it 0-3 for Baltimore. But it was a it was just reality. Dallas isn't going undefeated this year. That's totally okay. Again, Dad said it. Let's not hit the panic button. But there are two things we need to cover moving forward, and we need to cover what Dallas does in terms of home field advantage. That question has been brought up since this game, in addition to how the Cowboys handle the Shanahan coaching tree. We previewed that a little bit yesterday or 2 days ago when we did the Mike McCarthy press conference update that we dropped on Fans First exclusively. And speaking of Fans First exclusively, this is where the commercial break takes place. We'll cover more about what this game means moving forward for the Dallas Cowboys with those two subjects when we come back from a commercial break on Fans First Sports Network and continuing on Boom Broadcasting right after the break. Welcome back to Dad and the Boys on Boom Broadcasting on Fans First Sports Network. Whether you're listening to us or you're watching us, thank you. And this was a tough episode. This was a tough game to sit through. There were points where I'm like, I really don't want to be watching this game right now. Let the pain in. But of course, Dallas isn't finishing the season undefeated. We covered that before the break. But there are two questions we need to answer that, social media and the media itself are asking after this. And one of it is home field advantage. We'll touch on this first because the Green Bay Packers was the last home game we had, and they trounced the Cowboys in the playoffs. We come out, open the season, week 2 at home, and we get trounced by the New Orleans Saints. Dallas has actually had a good home record really the last 2 years. The last team to beat Dallas in the regular season is now calling games from the booth. Tom Brady beat Dallas that, opening week with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple years ago. Later on in the year, Tom Brady's career was ended by the Dallas Cowboys in the postseason. And even since Dak's come in the league, I told you this when we were, going to Durham, is the Dallas Cowboys entering this game, and now they're just solely third on this list, have the third best home record since Dak came into the league in 2016. Number 1, Kansas City Chiefs. They just reached 50. And Green Bay just edged us this past week with a win over the Colts. They're sitting at 47, I believe, or 48. They're sitting at 48, and the Cowboys are sitting at 47.
And you got to remember that in 2020, was it that Dak hurt his ankle?
Yeah.
And was after 5, he was out for the rest of the year. So, they did that, part of that with a backup quarterback. And that was a terrible year for us, by the way. Do I think that this is going to parlay into us struggling at home this year? No. Again, we met a very hot New Orleans Saints team. A very hot. And, it is what it is. Have you ever had that where you're sitting there and you're almost like you're in a bad dream and you're just wanting to wake up? That's kind of how I felt in this game. Michael will tell you, we got home from church late Sunday afternoon, and normally we recorded it and we played it delayed for the game. And normally I will not fast forward through the game because I'm like, I don't want to break the mojo. Dallas is doing good. Got to about the third quarter, and I was just sitting there. I was like, man, I want this to be over. So I was hitting the fast forward button through the commercials. Dallas is my ride or die. If we're 0-16 or 16-0, I'm going to be a fan for life.
And talking about defending home field, it doesn't get easier. We'll preview more of the Baltimore Ravens game on Friday when Dad and the Boys comes back.
The good thing is the Ravens don't have a Shanahan offense.
That is true. And that is another topic we'll talk about here in just a moment. But, looking at this upcoming home schedule, it's brutal. Dallas is playing some really, really good teams. You got Baltimore this week. You got Detroit a little later on. They were a playoff team last year.
Then
the Eagles
and Texans.
Playoff team. Texans.
Looking forward to November 28th when we get to play the Giants at home.
And that's on Thanksgiving, so that's on a short week against the Giants, a division rival. And then you have the Bengals, which do they get their stuff situated and sorted through? They're 0-2 right now. And then you finish out with the Buccaneers if they're still hot or contending and vying for an NFC South crown, and then finish off the year with the Commanders at home. So especially these next 3-4 games at home, it's not going to be easy for Dallas to defend home field. So it's not an entire reflection on our home field advantage, but it is a tough schedule. But I wouldn't hit the panic button. Usually we perform well at home, and hopefully this is just an anomaly. And Dad, here, I've had a couple days sit on this. And I touched a little bit on it on Out of Pocket yesterday, but promised to go in more depth on Dad and the boys today. I am really worried. And I told you guys on Dad and the boys, like, I'll keep it real. I'll keep it 100%. I'll keep it legit. I won't let my bias come into this. That's where I let Dad have the bias.
I'll be biased as all get out.
But there is a genuine concern, because if you look at Dallas seems to have a kryptonite now with the Shanahan coaching tree. And for a second, I thought it was the media hyping this up, and San Fran had a lot of talent. But then look what happened last year in the playoffs. The Packers head coach, Matt LaFleur, part of that Shanahan coaching tree. The New Orleans Saints, who we looked on paper last week, Dad, and we're like, we'll be honest, we were both very overlooking the Saints in terms of like, we don't have anything to worry about. I would take Dallas on paper versus New Orleans on paper, but the Saints offensive coordinator is a part of that coaching tree.
He is, but overlooking the Saints was more, and I don't put a lot of credit into last year's record, because most teams
they're different.
They're different. They basically a third of their team changes every year at minimum. So they're a different team. And they played strong throughout the end of last year. I overlooked that. I overlooked Derek Carr. I never thought Derek Carr was that good of a quarterback, even when he was with the Raiders.
I thought he was okay.
I mean, I never did. I really didn't. I thought he was overdrafted. And I'm still not sold on him. But this system that he's in right now seems to be doing well for him, and I wish him the best. But, he's got talent around him, and that is something I want to touch on. Bryce Young, you got benched on Monday. Now, I know Michael was a Bryce Young advocate, and I wasn't, simply because, not necessarily Bryce Young, but I was like, why are you giving up McCaffrey? Why are you giving up DJ Moore and multiple draft picks to go up and get this kid? Which, in all honesty, yeah, everybody goes, well, you took him over C.J. Stroud. Well, no offense to C.J. Stroud, but if he come there, he wouldn't do anything either, because Carolina hasn't built the team around to support Bryce Young. And yeah, you can go spend money in free agency. We've seen other teams do it year in and year out, and they're still picking at the top of the draft order year in and year out. Just spending money on somebody's used product doesn't necessarily equate to victories. Hopefully this is a reset for you in your young career. And that you can get on the right track, and they'll build a team around you that you can have a successful NFL career. As far as Dallas goes, we've got a tough schedule. There's no getting at it. But you know what? Every one of those teams that you mentioned are sitting there and they've got Dallas on their schedule and they're not chalking it up as a win right yet.
That's true. That is true.
You know, I mean, in the words of the nature boy Ric Flair, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. So let's go out. Dak, Zeke, CD, and Micah, and Trayvon, D-Law, let's go out and beat them. Turn this season around. This can be a wake-up point. You got embarrassed. And if you're not embarrassed, then you need to check yourself at the door. Because it was embarrassing. I mean, it really was. You didn't stop them until the fourth quarter. And the first 6 possessions were touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's uncalled for. But, I feel like this Shanahan coaching tree is a real thing. And it would be a real thing until the Cowboys can beat the Niners.
But you look at it, in all honesty, look at the Shanahan coaching tree that we're talking about. You're talking about the 49ers. You're talking about the Green Bay Packers. You're talking about
the Saints.
Who the Saints really, if you look at it, Olave, the Shaheed guy is super fast. I mean, Jimmy Johnson once said, speed's something you can't coach.
Yeah.
If the quarterback gets it there and they can catch the ball, speed's something you can't coach. I mean, you can only run so fast. I don't think Trayvon would have stopped him. I don't think Duron would have stopped him. The one thing that kind of, I hope they don't hold it against him, because I really don't think he had that bad of a game. But I did notice that they kind of took him benched. In the second half, they benched Seatbelt Carson, the rookie, and put Jordan Lewis out there. I hope that's not a thing going forward, because I think the kids played well.
Just a bad game.
I think this was a bad game all the way around for our defense. Matchup-wise, we just didn't match up. And you have those opponents. You struggle to have matchups. And that injuries and matchups is often a big prediction on who's going to win the game. Historically, we haven't, over the last few years, we haven't matched up well with the 49ers. Will we this year? Hopefully. Time will tell. That's a late October game in the Bay Area. What will the weather be like? That field's not the most sound.
No.
And it's slippery. So, I mean, and there again, McCaffrey, how will his health be coming back from injury? You never know. And I mean, and that's a big hit for that offense. Again, Minnesota's 2-0. They beat the 49ers. And that was a shock. That was as much a shock, to me, as much of a shocker as what happened to the Dallas Cowboys.
Both of those were shockers, to be clear.
I mean, because I honestly did not figure Minnesota won. I didn't think they would do anything with J.J. McCarthy. And
now Sam Darnold's
2-0. I mean, and I think who did he beat the first week? The Giants, was it? Or something?
Yeah, it was the Giants' first week.
So that's a get-right game. They're kind of like they're like the Panthers right now. They're struggling, and that's your get-right game, in all honesty. What, the Steelers are 2-0? Really? I mean, you see, in the NFL, you often have teams go 2-0, and then come postseason, they're nowhere to be seen. And at the top of the draft order, they're drafting. That happens. You have teams start out 0-2, 1-1. Hey, it happens. So I'm not going to hit the panic button per se. I do think we need to look at the Shanahan thing and see, what are we doing wrong? And I think Mike Zimmer has enough defensive whereabouts to address that and figure out where can he best put his team, to take and alleviate that problem. And if you look at that, you add that up, that's 3, 6, 7 weeks into the season that we're playing the 49ers. Well, Mr. Bland should be back, so that will only strengthen our team, hopefully. So I mean, and then we're coming up on a stretch where we're, at the 49ers, at the Falcons, and then we got the Eagles and Texans at home. I
It's going to be challenging, but the only thing I can say good about this game is hopefully
it's only one loss.
It's one loss, but hopefully this gave Mike Zimmer an idea of what he's going to go up against, because I would rather have a win over the 49ers, who Dallas will likely be contending for in terms of seeding in the playoffs, and a confidence boost to finally beat the 49ers versus winning a Saints game and then overlooking the 49ers, which would
if you're asking me terrible. Who I'd rather lose to, I'd definitely the Saints.
Definitely the Saints. Definitely a week 2 loss versus a week 7 or 8 loss.
Well, I mean, simply put, if we go into week 7 and we lose to the 49ers and it's bad, I mean, the confidence of the team is going to be like, we just can't beat them. I mean, and I'm not saying we will lose to them or we'll beat them. I'm hoping we do. I'm an optimist, if you haven't realized that on this show. But, I mean, point blank, if we go in and we lose to them and it's a handedly loss, then the confidence of this team, I think, will suffer. And I don't want to see that. It's a tough stretch. And, but we know this about the NFL. It's a week-to-week league.
It's a week-to-week league, and so that means we'll now put the Saints behind us, and on Friday, when we're back for Dad and the Boys, we'll look ahead to the Baltimore Ravens game upcoming this weekend. So this has been Dad and the Boys on Boom Broadcasting on Fans First Sports Network. We appreciate you guys. Hopefully you subscribe to Boom Broadcasting. Hopefully you follow Fans First Sports Network so we can be your stop.
And get your apparel.
Boom Broadcasting, an affiliate to Fanatic. So go get your Cowboys apparel. Hopefully don't get something that the star will fade, but it'll never fade in your heart. So you may now return to your regularly scheduled lives. Thanks so much for watching us on Boom Broadcasting and Fans First Sports Network with Dad and the Boys. And remember, this is our first rodeo, and we'll catch you here next time.